Marcelo was a millionaire entrepreneur who controlled his routine, his business, and most importantly, his two twin daughters with surgical precision. When he hired Rafaela as a cleaner, he couldn't imagine that this simple woman was hiding a secret that would change his life forever. On the day he pretended to leave to catch her doing something wrong, Marcelo learned the most painful truth a father could face, and what he saw that evening was not at all what he expected. It was something much worse, or perhaps much better, than he had ever dared to dream. This is a story about control, fear, and the lessons that only true love can teach. If you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe right now and hit the bell so you don't miss any touching stories like this. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been in a situation where you discovered you were completely wrong about someone? Marcelo Ferreira had everything money could buy. His 3-level house on the avenue cost more than 15 million reais. His office occupied 3 floors of a commercial building in the financial heart of São Paulo. He managed an investment network handling sums that most people couldn't even pronounce. At 42, Marcelo was the embodiment of success. But success has a price. His price was paid in loneliness, obsessive control, and a pain he could never overcome. 2 years ago, his wife Camila died during the birth of the twins from complications no one expected, a hemorrhage the doctors couldn't stop. She held the babies in her arms for just 10 minutes before closing her eyes forever. Marcelo didn't cry when he heard the news, didn't cry at the farewell, didn't cry at the funeral. He simply froze, turning his pain into something hard, cold, and calculating. From that day on, he decided he would never lose control over anything, especially his daughters. Laura and Lvia were 1.5 years old and identical twins. Thin, sparse chestnut hair, huge honey-colored eyes, plump baby cheeks. They were still crawling around the house, starting to take their first unsteady steps. But from birth, both lived in a suffocating silence. Marcelo hired a nanny right after Camila's death but fired her after 3 weeks. The woman sang to the babies, rocked them in her arms, tickled their tummies. Marcelo considered it excessive. The babies needed a routine, not pampering. He hired another nanny. She lasted 2 months. She was fired for putting the twins in a stroller and taking them for a walk in the park. Marcelo exploded. The outside world was dangerous. Germs, accidents, people with bad intentions. The girls would stay home, safe and under control. The third didn't last even a week. She made the unforgivable mistake of picking up Laura when the baby cried. Marcelo entered the room and saw the scene. Put her back in the crib. She needs to learn that crying doesn't solve anything. The nanny tried to argue. Mister Marcelo, she's a baby. Babies need arms, need affection. That's how they develop emotionally. Marcelo fired her on the spot. After firing the 8th nanny, Marcelo gave up. He would take care of the girls himself. He only hired a cleaner to tidy the house while he worked from his home office. No contact with the babies, no interference, just cleaning. That's when Rafaela appeared. She was 35 but looked younger. Short, slim, with a simple face and a constant smile that deeply irritated Marcelo. How could someone smile all the time? During the interview, she stood in front of his mahogany desk, holding an old folder with her documents. She didn't look him in the eyes the whole time. Do you have experience cleaning in luxury homes? Marcelo asked, flipping through her modest resume. I have cleaning experience, sir. A house is a house, no matter the size. The direct answer surprised him. There are strict rules here. You'll clean, tidy up, and leave. I don't want conversations, no familiarity, no interfering in anything except cleaning. Clear? Clear, sir. And the babies? She asked, pointing to the framed photo on the desk. They're adorable. The babies are none of your concern, Marcelo said dryly. They're in their room. I take care of them. Clean the rest of the house. Understood. Rafaela looked at the photo for another moment, and something flashed across her face. Sadness, perhaps, or compassion. Understood, sir. Marcelo hired her because she seemed harmless. Mistake. In the first days, Rafaela did everything precisely. Arrived at 8 in the morning, cleaned in silence, and left at 4 in the afternoon. She never asked anything, never approached the baby's room, never crossed boundaries. But Marcelo noticed something strange. The twins began to change. Laura, who constantly whimpered quietly in her crib, started babbling other sounds. Elvia, who stared silently at the ceiling for hours, began reaching out her arms when she heard noise in the hallway. Small changes, details most people wouldn't notice, but Marcelo noticed everything. And it sparked alarm in his head. One Thursday morning, Marcelo pretended to leave. He told Rafaela he had an urgent meeting in Rio de Janeiro and would return the next day. She just nodded and continued cleaning the kitchen. He left with a suitcase, got in the elevator but went nowhere. He went down to the garage, put the suitcase in the car, and returned via the service stairs. He entered the apartment through the side door leading to the utility area, the one no one used. He locked himself in the kitchen pantry, leaving just a crack in the door. There he waited, heart pounding, palms sweaty, ready to catch her in what he was sure of. Theft, rummaging through his things, or worse, trying to get close to the babies. 2 hours passed. Rafaela cleaned the living room, mopped the hallway floor, tidied the laundry. All as usual. Until she stopped in front of the twins' room. Marcelo held his breath. There it was. Now he'd catch her invading his daughter's space. But what happened next was something he never expected. Rafaela slowly opened the door and carefully entered the room. Marcelo left the pantry, walked silently down the hallway, and stood by the slightly open door. What he saw made his world stop. Both babies were in the playpen. Laura holding an unremarkable toy, Elvia sitting in the corner sucking her thumb. Neither was crying, neither smiling. They just existed, like two little robots programmed not to disturb. Rafaela knelt in front of the playpen and then did what no one before her had. She started singing. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, I want to see how you shine up there in the sky so big and beautiful. You're the most beautiful in the world. Rafaela's voice was soft and melodic. She sang quietly but with such tenderness that it seemed to fill the whole room. Laura stopped holding the toy and turned her head toward Rafaela, her eyes widening. Elvia took her thumb out of her mouth. For the first time in months, both paid attention to something. Rafaela opened the playpen and entered. She sat on the floor cross-legged. Come here, my sweet, come to Auntie. She extended her arms. Laura crawled toward her slowly, cautiously, as if unsure if she could trust. Rafaela didn't rush her, just waited. When the baby got closer, Rafaela picked her up with such care, such tenderness, as if holding a treasure. You're so beautiful, you know. So beautiful. Then she looked at Elvia. And you too, princess. Come to Auntie. Elvia hesitated, but then something incredible, she smiled. A small, shy, but real smile. And she crawled to Rafaela. Marcelo felt his legs buckle. He leaned against the wall. These babies, his daughters, they had never smiled at him like that, never crawled to him with desire. They obeyed him, yes, but didn't love him. For the first time, he understood the difference. Now Rafaela held both in her arms. She rocked side to side, humming. Laura placed her plump little hand on Rafaela's face. Elvia nestled her head on her shoulder. And both closed their eyes, not in sadness, but in peace. You know your mommy is watching you from above, right? Rafaela whispered. She must have been very beautiful because you are. I know she's proud of you, very proud. Marcelo felt something wet roll down his face. He touched his cheek, it was tears. For the first time in 2 years, he cried. There, alone, leaning against the wall next to his own daughter's room, he finally understood. He wasn't protecting them, he was slowly killing them, just as he was killing himself. Rafaela wasn't a threat, she was the salvation he never knew he needed. And now he had a choice. He could enter that room, fire Rafaela, and continue living in this prison of silence and control, or he could swallow his pride, open his heart, and finally let love in again. Marcelo took a deep breath, wiped his tears, and stayed there watching. For the first time in 2 years, he wasn't controlling, he was feeling. And it hurt. It hurt so much that he almost gave up, almost entered and drove her away. But then Laura giggled, a short, ringing, delightful laugh of a happy baby. And Marcelo knew he couldn't take that away from them. No, not again. He'd already taken their mother, he wouldn't take the only person who made them smile. If it meant admitting that he, the man who managed millions, didn't know how to care for his own daughters. What do you think Marcelo will do now? Will he fire Rafaela or finally understand what his daughters need? Leave your opinion in the comments. Marcelo didn't enter the room. He stayed there, leaning against the wall, watching through the crack in the door. Rafaela continued sitting on the floor with the two babies in her arms, singing softly. Laura played with the simple necklace Rafaela wore, curiously tugging the string. Elva nestled her head on the cleaner's shoulder and sucked her thumb with half-closed eyes, almost asleep. It was such a simple, ordinary scene, but for Marcelo, it was like watching a miracle. His daughters were relaxed, happy, real babies. He'd never seen that before. From birth, the twins lived in the rigid routine he himself created. Bottle at exact times, diaper changes on schedule, mandatory sleep. No noisy games, no mess, no emotions. He thought he was raising disciplined daughters prepared for a tough world. But now, seeing them in a stranger's arms, he realized the bitter truth. He was raising two scared, empty, lifeless beings. Rafaela started tickling Laura's tummy. The baby burst into a piercing, ringing laugh full of pure joy. Marcelo felt a pang in his chest. That sound, that laugh, he'd never heard it. Laura had always been quiet, obedient, too much so for a 1.5-year-old. And now she laughed heartily, her whole body shaking. Elva smiled too, still shy, but a real smile. And now you, princess. Rafaela tickled Elva. The baby giggled softly, hiding her face in the cleaner's neck. She was shyer, but she liked it. You're the most beautiful babies I've ever seen in my life. Rafaela kissed each on the forehead. You'll be fine, you'll be taken care of. You'll get lots of affection, lots of love, because you deserve it. Marcelo felt the tears returning. He clenched his fists, trying to hold back. He couldn't cry, not here, not now. But it was impossible. For the first time in 2 years, he saw what he'd lost. Not just Camila, he'd lost the chance to be a real father, to hold his daughters, hear their laugh, smell their baby scent, see their first steps. He'd chosen control over love, and now he was paying for it. Rafaela got up from the floor with both babies in her arms. She was small but carried them easily, balancing one on each arm. Let's change these diapers, huh, girls? And then Auntie will make you a yummy porridge. How about that? Laura clapped her little hands. Elva just nestled her head on Rafaela's shoulder, trusting completely. Marcelo slowly backed away, returned to the hallway, and went back into the pantry, carefully closing the door. He leaned against the cold wall. He needed to think, to understand what was happening. Rafaela had broken his orders. She wasn't supposed to touch the babies, enter the room, sing, tickle, caress. But she did, and the girls responded. For the first time, they seemed alive. Marcelo could fire her right now. Enter the room, take the babies, kick Rafaela out, and go back to the old ways. But then what? The girls would return to that soul-crushing silence, become two obedient, empty robots again. And he'd become that cold, controlling, lonely man he'd turned into. Was that what he wanted? Was that what Camila wanted? He closed his eyes and remembered the day Camila learned she was pregnant with twins. She jumped into his arms, laughing and crying at once. Marcelo, too. 2 girls. We'll have 2 princesses. She glowed. In the following months, Camila spent hours decorating the baby's room. Chose pink wallpaper with golden stars, bought white cribs with snowy ruffles, filled the house with plush toys, musical mobiles, bright books. Every day she sang to her belly, talked to the babies, told stories, made plans. We'll take them to the park, teach them to ride bikes, go to the beach and watch them play in the sand. It'll be wonderful, Marcelo, it'll be perfect. And Marcelo agreed he wanted all that too. But then Camila died, and all the plans died with her. After the funeral, Marcelo locked the baby's room, removed all decorations, painted the walls white, hid the plush toys, dismantled the mobiles. He turned the room into something clinical, lifeless. He thought it would make it easier, that erasing all traces of Camila would ease the pain. But it didn't, it only grew stronger. And worse, he passed that pain to his daughters. They grew up in a cold environment, without colors, without music, without love. And now Rafaela was breaking it all, without permission, without fear. She just entered the girls' lives and returned what Marcelo had taken. Joy, affection, life. And he hated to admit it, but she was right. An hour later, Marcelo heard the room door open. He peeked from the pantry. Rafaela was coming out with a trash bag in hand. The babies weren't with her, they were probably asleep. Rafaela went to the kitchen, threw out the trash, washed her hands, and returned to the living room. Marcelo waited a few more minutes, then left the pantry. He walked silently to the living room. Rafaela was wiping the sofa, carefully running the cloth. She didn't notice him. Marcelo cleared his throat. Rafaela turned, jumping and pressing her hand to her chest, scared. "Mister." "Marcelo, I thought you left." She paled, eyes widening. It was obvious she knew she'd done something wrong. "I returned." Marcelo crossed his arms. Unforeseen circumstances arose. Rafaela swallowed, set down the cloth, and stood straight, waiting. The silence in the room was heavy. Marcelo knew she was expecting dismissal, a lecture, a scolding. But he couldn't speak, the words stuck in his throat. "You entered my daughter's room," Marcelo finally said, his voice weaker than he wanted. "I did, sir." Rafaela didn't look away. "I asked you not to." "You did." "Then why didn't you obey?" Marcelo stepped forward. Rafaela took a deep breath. She didn't tremble, didn't lower her head. She looked him straight in the eyes. "Because they needed it." Marcelo blinked, confused. "What?" "They needed it, sir," Rafaela repeated, now firmer. "Your daughters are babies, 1.5-year-old babies. They need affection, arms, attention. They need to laugh, play, feel loved. And with all due respect, sir, they're not getting any of that." Marcelo felt anger rising. How dare she? "You know nothing about my daughters." "I know they don't smile," Rafaela interrupted, her voice now firm, without fear. "I know they sit for hours in silence in the room, not playing, making no sound. I know they fear disturbing, fear crying, fear existing. And that's not normal, sir. Babies shouldn't fear being babies." Marcelo clenched his fists, blood boiling in his veins. Who did she think she was to talk to him like that? "You're fired," he said dryly. "Take your things and leave my house immediately." Rafaela didn't move. "You can fire me, sir, but before I go, you need to hear something." "I don't need to hear anything from you." Rafaela stepped forward. "I saw your wife's photo on the desk in the office. She was beautiful. I'm sure she was an amazing woman. But she's gone, sir, and no matter how painful, how unfair, life goes on. And your daughters need a father, not a boss, not a controller. They need someone to hold them in arms, to let them be children. Because if you continue like this, you'll lose them too, not physically, but emotionally. And when they grow up, they'll remember not a father, but a cold man who never truly loved them." The silence that followed was deafening. Marcelo stood staring at Rafaela. The anger was still there, but with the anger was something else. Pain, shame, and fear. Fear that she was right. "You can go," Marcelo said quietly, turning away. Rafaela took her bag and headed to the door. But before leaving, she turned one last time. "Mr. Marcelo." He didn't respond. "Your daughters are wonderful, and they deserve to be happy. You do too." The door closed, and Marcelo was left alone again. What do you think? Did Marcelo do the right thing by firing Rafaela? What would you do in his place? Write in the comments. 3 days passed. 3 days of absolute silence. Marcelo didn't hire another cleaner, he cleaned the house himself in the few hours he wasn't working. The babies returned to the old routine. Bottle at the right time, diaper changes on schedule, mandatory sleep. No music, no games, no laughter. But now something was different, Marcelo noticed. Laura whimpered quietly in the crib, reaching her arms up every time he entered the room. She'd never done that before. Elvia stared at the door as if waiting for someone. When she saw it was just her father, her little face dimmed. They missed Rafaela, and Marcelo knew it. He tried to ignore it, tried to convince himself the babies would soon forget, that everything would return to normal. But it didn't. In fact, it got worse. Laura started crying at night, loud, desperate cries that pierced the walls. Marcelo went to the room, picked her up, but the baby squirmed, pushing him away with her little hands on his chest. She didn't want him, she wanted Rafaela. Lvia stopped eating properly. She spit out the porridge, turned her face away, clamped her mouth shut. Marcelo tried everything. Changed the porridge flavor, heated it more, heated it less. Nothing helped. The baby just didn't want it. And he didn't understand why. Actually, he did, but didn't want to admit it. The girls had tasted something he'd never given them. Affection, attention, love. And now, having tasted it, they couldn't live without it. Marcelo was broken. He spent sleepless nights listening to Laura's cries echo through the house. He sat in the office staring at Camila's photo on the desk. She smiled in the photo, a wide, sincere smile full of life. He remembered that day. It was the last month of pregnancy. Camila was huge, tired, but happy. She put her hands on her belly and said, looking at the camera, "These girls will be very loved, very. I'll do everything to make them happy. Marcelo, promise me. If something happens to me, take care of them with love, not just responsibility, with love." He promised, but didn't keep it. Marcelo buried his face in his hands. He was a coward, an idiot, a terrible father. Rafaela was right. He was killing his daughters little by little, and worse, killing himself too. Living in this obsessive control, in this coldness, it wasn't life, it was just survival. And he was tired of surviving. On the morning of the fourth day, Marcelo woke to a strange sound. He ran to the baby's room and found Elvia standing, holding onto the crib rails. She was trying to get out, trying to reach the door. Elvia. Marcelo rushed to her and picked her up. The baby started crying, not just any cry, but one of rage, of despair. She wanted to get out of there, wanted to find Rafaela. Marcelo sat on the floor with Elvia in his arms. The baby pounded his chest with her little fists, not stopping the cry. He didn't try to calm her, he just let her vent. And as he held his daughter, he finally understood. He couldn't go on like this. He couldn't let his daughter suffer because of his pride, his fear. Rafaela wasn't a threat, she was exactly what the babies needed, and what he needed too. Someone to bring life back to this house, someone to show him how to be a real father. Marcelo took the phone and dialed the number from Rafaela's resume. His heart raced, palms sweaty. What if she didn't answer? What if she didn't want to come back? The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Hello. Rafaela's voice was cautious. Rafaela. Marcelo took a deep breath. It's Marcelo Ferreira. Silence on the other end. Marcelo thought she'd hang up. Mister. Marcelo, Rafaela finally said in a neutral voice. What do you need? I need you to come back. More silence. Marcelo heard her breathing on the other end. Sir, I don't think that's a good idea. Please. Marcelo closed his eyes. Elvia was still crying in his arms, her body trembling. The girls are doing badly, Rafaela. They don't eat right, don't sleep right. Laura cries all night. Elvia wants nothing. They're looking for you. They need you. With all respect, sir, they need their father, Rafaela said, her voice firm. They need someone who truly loves them. I know. Marcelo felt tears welling up again. I know, and you're right. I've been a terrible father until now. I was so afraid of losing that I ended up losing everything anyway. But I want to change, Rafaela. I need to change. I can't do it alone. Please come back, not as a cleaner, as a nanny, as the person who'll teach me to be a better father. Rafaela was silent for a long time. Marcelo waited, holding Elvia tight. The baby stopped crying and now sniffled, nestled against his chest. Are you serious? Rafaela finally asked. Serious. I'll pay double. It's not about the money, sir. I know, Marcelo swallowed. It's about the girls. And me. I need help, Rafaela. I need to learn to be the father they deserve, the father Camila wanted me to be. More silence, then Rafaela sighed. Okay, I'll come back. But on one condition. Anything, Marcelo said quickly. You must promise to spend time with them, to hold them, to sing to them, to let them be babies. And to stop fearing to love them. Because love doesn't cause pain, sir, its absence does. Marcelo felt a lump in his throat. I promise. Then I'll come back tomorrow morning. Thank you, Rafaela. Thank you so much. Marcelo hung up and looked at Elvia. The baby had stopped crying and now looked at him with red, swollen eyes. Marcelo kissed her forehead. She's coming back, little one. Auntie Ruffa is coming back. And Daddy will be better. I promise. Elvia placed her little hand on his face and, for the first time, didn't push away. She just left it there, warm and small. Marcelo cried. He cried for Camila, for his daughters, for all the lost time, and from relief because he was finally letting love in again. The next morning, Marcelo woke up, prepared the bottles for the girls, bathed them, dressed them in clean clothes, and at exactly 8, the doorbell rang. Marcelo went to the door with Laura in his arms. He opened it. Rafaela stood there, bag over her shoulder, with that soft smile on her face. Good morning, Mr. Marcelo. Good morning, Rafaela. Come in, please. Rafaela entered, and immediately Laura reached her arms toward her, making joyful sounds. Rafaela took the baby in her arms, and Laura happily snuggled against her. Hello, princess. Auntie is back. I missed you. Marcelo went to the room and returned with LVIA. The baby saw Rafaela, and her little face lit up. She reached out her arms too. Rafaela took LVIA with the other arm, and now both babies were hanging on her. How I missed my beautiful princesses. Rafaela kissed each on the forehead. You've grown, you know? You've become even more beautiful. Marcelo stood watching the scene, and then Rafaela looked at him. Mr. Marcelo, do you want to hold them with me? Marcelo hesitated. I don't know if they'll want to. There's only one way to find out. Rafaela smiled. Come here, Laura, look who's here. It's Daddy. Go hug Daddy. Rafaela handed Laura to Marcelo. The baby looked at her father, still unsure, but Rafaela was nearby, stroking the baby's back. That's it, princess. Daddy loves you very much, you know? He was just a little scared, but now he'll take care of you properly. Marcelo looked at Laura. The baby looked back, and then slowly, she leaned her head on his shoulder. Marcelo felt his heart explode. He hugged his daughter tightly but gently. Daddy loves you, Laura. Loves you very much. Forgive me for not showing it for so long. Rafaela smiled. It was the beginning of a new story, a story of love, healing, and new beginnings. Do you think Marcelo can become a better father? Can Rafaela bring joy back to this home? Leave your opinion down below. The days that followed became a quiet revolution inside that penthouse. Rafaela didn't come imposing drastic changes, she acted gradually, like someone planting seeds and patiently waiting for the harvest. Marcelo, for the first time in 2 years, allowed someone to enter the sacred territory he'd built around his daughters. In the first week, Rafaela brought colors, literally. She arrived with a bag full of bright toys. Red, yellow, and blue blocks soft plush animals fabric books with different textures rattles making fun sounds. Marcelo looked at all this scattered on the floor and felt discomfort. Isn't it too much? He asked, trying to keep a neutral tone. Rafaela smiled, showing a rubber duck to Laura, who clapped happily. Babies need stimuli, Mr. Marcelo. Colors, sounds, textures, that's how they learn about the world. And look how happy they are. Marcelo looked at his daughters. Laura held the duck with both little hands, squeezing it to hear the sound. LVIA was fascinated by a book with a fluffy page imitating a lamb. She ran her little hands over the texture again and again, eyes wide with curiosity. They really looked happy, more alive than he'd ever seen them. Okay, Marcelo agreed, still hesitant. But no mess. At the end of the day, everything must be put away. Rafaela looked at him with that calm, firm gaze that was so her. Mr. Marcelo, babies and order aren't very compatible. But I promise to keep it clean. Just don't expect perfection all the time, because childhood is about mess, exploration, life. And that doesn't fit in a neat little box. Marcelo didn't respond but didn't argue either. It was the beginning. In the second week, Rafaela brought music. She played children's songs while playing with the girls, songs about animals, colors, numbers. Laura loved it. She swayed side to side, trying to hit the rhythm. LVIA was more shy but reacted too. She clapped slowly, almost embarrassed, but with a smile on her face. Rafaela sang along. She had a soft, clear voice full of energy. Marcelo sat in the office trying to work, but focusing was impossible. The music seeped through the walls, and with the music, the baby's laughter. He should have been annoyed, should have asked Rafaela to turn it down, but he couldn't, because that noise, that joy, filled the emptiness he'd carried inside for so long. Without realizing it, Marcelo caught himself smiling alone in the middle of the office, listening to his daughters laugh to a silly song about a frog that didn't want to wash its feet. At the end of the second week, Rafaela started involving Marcelo in the activities. "Mr. Marcelo, come here," she called from the living room. He left the desk and went. Rafaela was sitting on the floor with the babies. Laura was standing, holding her hands, trying to take steps. LVAA sat playing with blocks. "Look, Laura is almost walking on her own." Rafaela beamed. "You need to see this." Marcelo approached, kneeling beside them. Laura looked at her father and gave that toothless smile that melted any heart. She let go of one of Rafaela's hands and reached her little hand toward him. "She wants you, sir," Rafaela encouraged. "Call her." "Come, Laura." Marcelo extended his arms. "Come to Daddy, baby." The baby hesitated, took one unsteady step, then another. Her legs wobbled, balance unsteady. Rafaela held her by the waist, supporting but letting the baby try herself. "Come on, you can do it, princess." Laura took 2 more steps and plopped on the floor. But instead of crying, she laughed, burst into contagious laughter and looked at Rafaela as if saying, "Did you see what I did?" Marcelo felt his eyes fill with tears. His daughter was walking, almost walking, and he was there to see it. "She's amazing," Marcelo said with a trembling voice. "They both are," Rafaela replied, picking up LVIA. LVIA is more observant. She likes to sit quietly, paying attention to everything. But when she feels confident, she'll surprise us too. "Believe me." Marcelo looked at LVIA. The baby snuggled against Rafaela, looking at her father with curiosity. He extended his hand, gently touching her little face. LVA didn't pull away, she just kept looking, as if studying him. "Hello, little one," Marcelo whispered. "Daddy loves you. You know that." Elvia tilted her head, pressing her cheek to his palm, and Marcelo felt something break inside. It was the fear, the control, the coldness. Everything crumbled, and in its place, something new was born. True love. In the 3rd week, Rafaela suggested something that horrified Marcelo. "Mr. Marcelo, the girls need to go outside, see the sky, feel the wind, hear street sounds. How about taking them to the park?" Marcelo froze immediately. "The park? No, Rafaela, it's dangerous. Lots of people, germs, accidents." "No, sir. They're 1.5. They need sun, fresh air. Being locked up here isn't healthy." I said no. Marcelo was firm. Rafaela didn't insist that day, but the next morning, she came with another argument. "Sir, would Mrs. Camila take them for a walk?" Marcelo froze. Camila's name was rarely spoken in this house. Rafaela continued, voice soft but determined. "I saw her photos in the hallway. She seemed like a woman full of life, full of joy. I'm sure she'd take the girls to see flowers, birds, trees. She'd want them to know the world, not fear it." Marcelo closed his eyes. Camila would have done that. She planned to take the babies everywhere. Park, beach, zoo. She wanted her daughters to live. "Okay," he surrendered, opening his eyes. "But I'll go with you." "Of course," Rafaela smiled. "It would be wonderful if you come with us." That day, all 4 went out for the first time. Marcelo pushed the double stroller with the twins Rafaela walked beside. The park was quiet, with trees and a lake in the center. Laura looked at everything wide-eyed. LVIA was quiet but attentive. They'd never seen so much green, so much open space. "Let's sit there," Rafaela pointed to a lawn near a big tree. Marcelo agreed. They spread a blanket on the grass and took the babies out of the stroller. Laura immediately crawled on the grass, touching leaves, feeling the texture. LVIA stayed in Rafaela's arms, watching a passing butterfly. Marcelo sat nearby, watching his daughters. They were enchanted, fully absorbed in this new world. And he realized something. He'd spent 2 years protecting them from everything, but in doing so, deprived them of living, discovering the world, being happy. Raffaella was right, as always. Thank you, Marcello said suddenly. Raffaella looked at him in surprise. For what, sir? For everything. For not giving up on the girls, for not giving up on me. Marcello looked at her. You're saving us, Raffaella. I'll never be able to thank you enough. Raffaella smiled, eyes shining. Mister. Marcello, I'm not saving you. You're saving yourselves. I just show the way you choose to walk it. Laura crawled to Marcello and climbed onto his knees, staining his classic pants with grass. He paid no attention, he just hugged his daughter, kissed her crown, and for the first time in a long time, felt he was in his place. Life was no longer about control, it was about love. And Marcello was finally learning to see the difference. Has there been someone in your life who helped you see things differently? Someone who taught you to be better? Share with us in the comments. 6 months passed. 6 months that completely transformed life in that penthouse. The white, cold walls of the nursery were now decorated with bright stickers of stars and moons. The cribs remained the same, but around them were plush toys, books, and toys. The house, once living in silence, was now filled with laughter, children's songs, and the patter of hurried steps on the wooden floor. Laura learned to walk, and not just walk, she ran, climbed the sofa, explored every corner of the house with inexhaustible energy. Lvaa walked too, but more cautiously. She preferred to be near Raffaella or Marcello, holding their hand, observing the world with her curious, attentive eyes. Both had grown not only physically but emotionally. They smiled all the time, said single words. Mama, Papa, Auntie, Water. Each new word was a victory, and Marcello celebrated each as if it were the greatest triumph of his life. But the biggest change wasn't in the babies, it was in him. Marcello had changed. The cold, controlling, distant man gave way to a loving, caring, involved father. He woke early every day to give the girls their first bottle, bathed them, played on the floor, sang children's songs off key, making Raffaella laugh. He even cut his workload, worked more from home, refused international trips, delegated duties because now his priority was his daughters, and he wasn't ashamed to admit it. One Saturday morning, Marcello was in the living room playing with the girls. Laura tried to stack blocks but quickly gave up and tossed them in the air, laughing. Lva sat on his knees, flipping through an animal book, pointing to each picture and waiting for Papa to name it. Cow, Marcello pointed on the page. The cow says moo. Lva repeated her way. Moo, and giggled. Raffaella entered the living room with a tray of juice and cut fruit, set it on the coffee table, and sat on the floor next to them. Mister. Marcello, can I say something? Of course. He looked at her. You're unrecognizable. Raffaella smiled. In a good way. When I came here, you were a tense man full of fear. And now look at yourself. Playing on the floor, singing, laughing. The girls have changed you. Not the girls, Marcello corrected, looking at her with gratitude. It's you. You taught me to be a father, taught me that love isn't control but self-giving. I'll never forget it. Raffaella lowered her eyes, touched. I just did what anyone would, sir. No, Marcello shook his head. You did much more. You saved us. I want to ask you something. Raffaella looked at him curiously. I want you to live here permanently. Raffaella's eyes widened. Sir, there's a staff room that's never been used. I'll remodel it, set it up however you want. I'll pay double salary, and you'll become part of this family officially. Because the girls love you, Raffaella. And so do I, not romantically, Marcello hurried to explain, but as the person who changed my life, who gave me a second chance to be happy. Raffaella was silent for a long time, tears streaming down her face. Mister. Marcello, I accept. But on one condition. What? That you stop addressing me formally. Marcello laughed. It was the first time in months Raffaella heard him laugh truly, free, sincere laughter full of life. Deal, Raffaella. Deal. Laura threw herself onto Raffaella's knees, scattering the blocks. Elvia reached her arms to Marcello too, wanting up. And there, in that living room full of scattered toys, soft music playing, and ringing laughter, Marcello finally understood what Camilla meant by love. 2 weeks later, Marcello did something he hadn't in 2 years. He went to the cemetery. Alone, he brought white flowers, Camilla's favorites. He knelt before the grave and stood there in silence for a few minutes. Then he started speaking. "Hi, love. I haven't been here in a long time. Forgive me for that. I couldn't. Every time I thought of coming, I felt like I'd fall apart. But today I needed to. I needed to tell you something. The girls are wonderful, Camila. They're growing too fast. Laura is a real hurricane. She runs all over the house, knocks everything over, laughs all the time. She's a lot like you. Lvia is quieter, observant, affectionate, also like you. Actually, they're both you. And I'm trying, love. Trying to be the father you wanted me to be, the father they deserve. I made a lot of mistakes at first. I was scared, angry, wanted to control everything because I thought that way I wouldn't lose anyone else. But in the end, I only lost myself. Then a woman appeared, Rafaela. She's incredible, Camila. Simple, sincere, full of love. She taught me to really look at the girls, listen to them, feel them. And now I'm a better father. I'm still not perfect, sometimes I'm still scared, but I try every day. Marcelo wiped the tears rolling down his face. I'd like you to be here, to see them take their first steps, say their first words, smile in a way that lights up everything. But I know you see it from where you are now. I promise, love, I promise I'll take care of them, love them, do everything to make them happy. Because that's what you wanted, and that's what I'll do. He stayed there a few more minutes, feeling the light breeze, the sun on his face, a peace he hadn't felt in so long. When he stood, he knew he was no longer tied to the past. He was ready to live the present and build a better future for his daughters. That evening, Marcelo was in the girls' room putting them to bed. Rafaela was nearby helping. Laura was already asleep, hugging the rubber duck she adored. Elvia was almost asleep, her eyes blinked slowly, fighting sleep. Marcelo softly sang the lullaby Rafaela had taught him. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, I want to see how you shine up there in the sky so big and beautiful. You're the most beautiful of all. Elvia closed her eyes, her body relaxed. She fell asleep. Marcelo kissed her forehead and covered her with the blanket. Then did the same with Laura. When he left the room, Rafaela waited in the hallway. They fell asleep fast today, she noted. Yes, Marcelo smiled. I think the park walk tired them. Rafaela looked at him with that affectionate gaze she always had. You're doing really well, you know? I try, Marcelo sighed. Every day. And that's the main thing. Rafaela put her hand on his shoulder. No one's perfect, but you're there, you love, and that's all they need. They stood there a moment in silence. Then Marcelo looked at her seriously. Rafaela, I'll never be able to thank you fully. You don't need to thank me. I did it because I wanted to, because I saw a broken family that needed help. And now you're not broken anymore, you're whole. And that's the best reward I could get. Marcelo hugged her tightly, sincerely, with gratitude. Rafaela returned the hug, her eyes moist. You're part of this family now, Marcelo said, releasing her. And you'll always be welcome here. Thank you, Marcelo. For the first time, she called him just by name. Thank you for trusting me and allowing yourself to change. Because changing isn't weakness, it's courage. That night, when everyone was asleep, Marcelo stood on the balcony for a while, looking at the lit city below. He thought about everything that had happened. The loss, the fears that paralyzed him, the chance he almost missed, the salvation that came in the form of a humble cleaner who saw what was hidden behind appearances. Rafaela wasn't just a worker, she was an angel in human form. Someone Camila somehow sent his way to save him, to save them. Marcelo looked at the starry sky. Thank you, Camila, he whispered. Thank you for sending her to us. And thank you for giving me these two incredible girls. I promise I'll be worthy of your legacy, that I'll love them as you would have. One star shone brighter in the sky, and Marcelo smiled because he knew Camila was at peace. And so was he. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to the channel right now and turn on the bell. Here you'll find real, touching stories that will make you think, cry, and believe that there's always a second chance. Don't miss the next story. If you liked it, give it a like and share it with those who need to hear this message today. Huge thanks for watching to the end, from the bottom of my heart. You who took your time to follow the story of Marcelo, Rafaela, and the girls, Know that your presence here is very important. Such stories only gain meaning when there's someone to hear them.